This is a messy story.
A man with a bright future ahead of him mysteriously vanished. Friends and police continue to search for answers. Deep in the wooded areas of Jonesboro, friends spend their days searching high and low. Searching for a friend gone missing. 34-year-old Brandon Blancett.
We want to see Brandon come home.
Brandon grew up in the Hazen, Des Arc area of Arkansas, a people person who his friends described as the most likable guy you would ever meet.
If you've been around Brandon at all for, 10 minutes, he's the most likable, witty, funny guy you would ever meet.
Someone his closest friends considered a brother.
It was hard not to fall in love with him.
One of those friends, who asked to stay anonymous, said he had a certain fire in him, a biblical calling.
And he was on fire for the Lord at the time. And, he felt like he was called to be a pastor. And I was happy and I was excited for him.
This is video of Brandon at Journey Jonesboro, a local church, as he's getting baptized. In the video, he talks about the demons in his life that led him to this very spot.
When my father took his life in January of 2015, I ran back to the only coping mechanism I ever knew. I started using drugs again, and it justified my drug use because the drugs were my prescriptions.
He had his demons, and, we all did through college. But Brandon, if you're around him long enough, he's got an addictive personality. And
a clean start, a new calling, and even a happy relationship. Life seemed to be going well for Brandon. Well, that is until October 10th, 2021. In the nice little neighborhood of Wildwood Point, a night in with his girlfriend seemed to take a turn for the worse.
The weekend prior to this, he had a relapse. She told him she was done. If he wanted to continue doing drugs and relapsing.
The argument escalated, resulting in Brandon storming out. Now, according to his friends, Brandon left around 4:26 to go to another girl's house. And according to them, she even said he was not himself.
And I'm not exactly sure what his motive was of going over to her house. She said that she was very worried about him because he came over, he was kind of speaking erratically. Whatever he said really worried her.
Shortly after 7, his friends say Brandon returned to the house in Wildwood Point.
We have video from a neighbor showing where Brandon had pulled in her driveway.
But his stop didn't last long. The girlfriend, who kept her mom in the loop during this whole situation, said Brandon had left again, this time shortly before 8 o'clock, and from that point, he vanished into the night.
And so after 7:55 on the evening of Sunday, we have no clue what happened.
Days went by, and no one heard from him. By the next morning, he had vanished, like a shadow into the night. Now, for those who knew Brandon, incidents like this weren't out of the ordinary.
At first, I didn't believe it, and then I was just like, well, he's had an episode before where he was gone for like 3 days, and he eventually came back.
When he did that, you didn't hear from him for a few days, sometimes even closer to a week. So that was kind of where my mind went when I first heard about the events that happened on October 10th.
4 days later, officers said the girlfriend stopped by the Jonesboro Police Department to file a missing persons report. Sergeant Joe Robinson works with the Criminal Investigation Division for the Jonesboro Police Department. At the time, he worked on all the missing persons cases, including Brandon's, and the search for Brandon began. Friends from all over came to the area surrounding Wildwood Point.
We never found anything, and so at that point, during this whole time frame, we were trying to get information from JPD, all the traffic lights that have cameras. Do y'all have anything on there? Is there any way you can scour those for any evidence? We were knocking on doors with ring doorbells in the area.
There with, I want to say we had about 16 of our detectives out searching and on a drone, and which there was an issue with the drone there being that close to the airport.
That went on for, a couple weeks. We would search whenever we could, and we would try to get people together on the Facebook group, say, hey, these are the dates that we're looking at going out and looking. These are the areas that we haven't canvassed yet. Whoever wants to volunteer to search this area, this is where we're going to be, type deal.
As anyone would when someone goes missing, one's first thought would be to call, but it turns out it wasn't that easy.
Well, an important detail before he stormed out the door at around 7:55, he had thrown his phone in the microwave and turned it on, and so it destroyed his cell phone.
Jonesboro police attempted to widen their search with a silver alert from Arkansas State Police. Unfortunately for them, their request was denied.
I didn't receive an explanation, just it didn't meet the criteria and it wasn't being issued, so.
Searches continued, utilizing every outlet friends and police could think of, from volunteer groups like EquiSearch to the local news outlets.
Tomorrow makes 6 months since 34-year-old Brandon Blancett went missing.
Each search seemed helpless.
Man, it was just really disheartening, We looked a bunch of times all over, everywhere we knew to look, basically. And just nothing, no evidence of anything even. No clothing, no shoes, no white tieless hat, none of that.
With each passing day, more and more people became aware of Brandon's disappearance. With more eyes on the case, theories began to circulate.
There'd be 1,000 theories you could come up with in this case, and
was there more to him going missing? Some thought maybe the girlfriend did it, pointing out she didn't go straight to the police, but instead waited 3 days to file a report.
I don't know if she was trying to protect him, so he didn't get in trouble for being on drugs and give him, time to sober up before she notified police.
As any concerned friend would, they worked to find him before getting the police involved.
People are throwing a lot of shame on her for doing that, but at the same time, we knew Brandon had done stuff like this before. And so before we freak out and maybe potentially call the cops and get Brandon in trouble, let's make sure this is for real. He is missing.
But a man simply going missing didn't seem to make a lot of sense for people. Enough people pushed for a criminal case. So much so that by early April of 2022, Robinson reached out to the prosecuting attorney's office to consider taking on the case.
Is there anything that would lead y'all to think of a criminal investigation aspect to this? And they said no, not at this time.
But who was this girlfriend? Friends of hers and Brandon said she was a sweet girl. When people online quickly pointed fingers at her, her friends came to her defense.
She had a lot going on. So, I couldn't put myself in her position and say I would have done any better because, she had a lot on her mind.
But what caused people to put the blame on her? Was there something about this that seemed out of the ordinary?
So there were some family members who had their suspicions, and
it could definitely change the way you react, but she was under a lot of pressure and a lot of hate from social media too.
I can't turn an investigation into something where I don't have at least a little bit of evidence or proof that, something that he was murdered.
I don't know. I try to not think the worst about her because I really don't know her. But at the same time, man, I would be trying to do everything I could to bring, my boyfriend back home, whether we were fighting or not, at the time.
We reached out to the girlfriend several times to see if she would like to comment. She didn't answer or return our calls. Time moved on. The Wildwood Point area, the area in which searchers spent days, even weeks in the woods looking for Brandon, began to develop. Still no trace of Brandon, but Robinson said that doesn't mean leads dried up. Some tips would soon be uncovered, like skeletal remains, An anonymous source reached out to the Jonesboro police and told him the bones were buried at John 316, a place for recovering alcoholics. A place where Brandon used to stay.
And was kind of from what we gather, yes, he had been there for treatment and had done very well there.
With the help of Arkansas State Police and the FBI, they quickly conducted a search, only to find nothing. A dead end. Sightings popped up here and there, surprisingly, even in places far away from Jonesboro, places as close to Mammoth Spring, all the way to Katy, Texas. No results, but it begs the question, how far did he go?
It's really challenging where somebody just ups and walks off into the night, so to speak. You know, we've really gotten spoiled in investigations as far as, you know, like using electronic devices. Well, he didn't have his to try and track.
But as for now, all that's left to do is move on.
We have families, we have jobs, we have lives too that we, you know, are trying to do our best in that regard.
And that is, how often do you guys look at this case?
No, like I said, every day. Trying to come up with something new.
With little progress made on the case, one could be left wondering how it played out differently. Robinson says while he understands why the girlfriend held off on reaching out, if she had come to them that night, it would have been a different outcome.
Hindsight's always 20/20, right? I'm not throwing blame at people, but yes, it does help out on missing person cases to get them reported as soon as possible.
But her friends, however, would disagree, saying police should have taken this more seriously.
I feel like they dropped the ball on this one. I feel like if they were more involved in the beginning, we may have been able to find something to go on.
I can see where they're coming from, you know, but again, we're already a little bit behind, and then we can physically look for him. We put out information looking for him. We can only go so far.
Even years after that fateful night, everyone holds out hope that Brandon may come back one day. And with each passing day, the love and hope may be the only things left to hold.
If Brandon was trying to, you know, stay gone for a long time, he would have came back by now, I promise you. He couldn't stay quiet, but for a week.
I'd give him a hug, man. He's got a lot of people here that miss him, that, you know, care about him.
I can always hope that he's still alive. You know, hope he's down in Florida on the beach.
Whatever the case may be, one thing remains. Sometimes there just aren't any easy answers.